What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co host, Eric Wilson. And today we're going to be talking about the New York Rangers losing Vladimir Tarasenko in free agency and what they can do this upcoming season to replace his production. Now, we know Tarasenko acquired at the trade deadline an impactful player for the Rangers, but didn't necessarily give them the spark that they were looking for in the postseason. Now we get over to this offseason. Rangers tight on cap space, could not afford to extend Tarasenko. He leaves. He's going to the Senators. What are the Rangers going to do to replace his production? That's what we're going to dive into in today's episode. But before we do all that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. And go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Rangers. Without further ado, Eric, how are you doing today, my friend? And how are you feeling after the Rangers have now officially lost Vladimir Tarasenko?
I'm doing good, and I'm feeling a little bitter towards the Rangers for not really making this deal happen. Going into the off season, we were just like, all right, yeah, he was just a rental, like he's not gonna resign, blah blah blah. And then you look at the deal, it's like it's only 1 year with Ottawa, but it's also only 5 million. And I know the Rangers were pretty like cap strapped heading into this off season, but I it was definitely possible. It's not really public on if the Rangers even made an effort to re-sign him, or if they did make an effort, how much of an effort it was. But I don't know. I think it could have happened, but at the end of the day, what's done is done. He's going to be on the Senators. I'm just happy that he's not on the Hurricanes like originally announced. So we won't have to play against him that often in the Metropolitan Division, only like twice a season. So that's a benefit at least. But you know, like I think Tarasenko is one of the better like rental trade deadline acquisitions that the Rangers have made in the recent years. He was traded to us, made an immediate impact. He was putting up points. Unlike Patrick Kane, he didn't mess up the team chemistry. And although the playoff push felt short, I think that without Tarasenko, it might have been even a little shorter. So we've got to look towards replacing what he brought to the table now.
Yeah, I thought that Tarasenko was the far more impactful acquisition at the deadline compared to Patrick Kane. And I don't know, not to rag too much on Patrick Kane, but I also thought that Tyler Mott was an even more impactful acquisition at the trade deadline. That was the money move to me for the Rangers at that deadline. I thought that the impact that Mott made down there in the bottom six was just tremendous for the Rangers, compared to the kind of middling impact that Kane made in the top six. So, but Tarasenko was somewhere in the middle of both of those. I don't think he revitalized the top six. I don't think that he middled in the top six. He was just a really good impact player for the Rangers. But now with him gone, they do have a pretty big hole to fill. Who is going to fill it? And that is the massive question. Now, let's go through some of these veterans that the Rangers signed this offseason, because if you look at this lineup, Eric, it's a night and day difference. Like, this is a completely different team compared to just a few months ago. Sure, the first line looks familiar. Chris Kreider, Zibanejad, Capo Caco moving up into the first line. Then you have Panarin, Trocheck, and then Blake Wheeler at right wing, new addition. You still have Lafrenière, Hedl projected on the third line right now with Jimmy Vesey. Those are all familiar names. But then you got Barclay Goodrow, Nick Bonino, and Tyler Pitlick on the fourth line in these projected lines. There are a lot of new names there, and none of them are necessarily young and exciting prospects. They're all just these old veterans that the Rangers signed. Bonino, Pitlick, Eric Gustafsson, Blake Wheeler, Jonathan Quick. All of these guys are just veterans that the Rangers signed to kind of create a little bit of a patchwork here on their lineup. So when you're looking at all of these veteran players, Eric, and you're considering Tarasenko leaving the top six, of course they're going to move up Capo Caco. That's the assumption here. But Blake Wheeler seems to be the guy in line to take over that second line right wing spot. But when you're looking at that in particular, how confident do you feel that Blake Wheeler can match that production, or at least do a decent enough job giving the Rangers production that makes them not miss Tarasenko too much?
So I'm decently confident in Blake Wheeler. I mean, if you look points wise throughout like the entirety of the 2023 season, including the Blues and the Rangers, Tarasenko had 50 points in 69 games. So like that's a pretty decent stat total right there. Blake Wheeler over in Winnipeg, I don't know if he played the full season, but I'm assuming it was more than 69 games that Tarasenko had. He had, I think, 55 points. So comparing point totals just alone, they're actually pretty similar. The only thing that really comes from Blake Wheeler, though, is that he's a little old. Tarasenko is only 31, so he's like still kind of in like that prime hockey player type of like age group. Whereas Blake Wheeler, I don't know his exact age, but I think he's 36 or 37 now. So he's getting to that point where like his numbers have been regressing a little bit, and they're only going to continue to go that way. So while like yes, Blake Wheeler proved himself last season that he can still produce points on like a somewhat elite level. Who knows what's going to happen? It's an entirely different team. He's going to be playing with a different group of players. One can only hope that playing alongside Artemi Panarin would boost those numbers. But I know we're kind of going to have to see. And just a little off topic here. I didn't even notice this, but I learned yesterday throughout the last 5 years, Artemi Panarin actually ranks fourth in highest point totals across the entire league. So he's doing something good. So hopefully that'll, rub off a little bit on Blake Wheeler and he can continue to produce points.
Well, I just think Panarin is such a great point scorer, not only because he could put the puck in the back of the net, but because he's such a great playmaker. And I think that's where Blake Wheeler is going to benefit playing alongside Panarin, because few in the NHL can pass the puck across the ice, from left wing to right wing, the way that Artemi Panarin can. Sure, sometimes he's a little too flashy with it, gets intercepted, creates turnovers, gives up some points, but he is one of the league's very best at making those cross ice passes. And I think Blake Wheeler is going to benefit from that. But speaking not about Blake Wheeler, but about this second line right wing spot. Now, I have this kind of wild idea, I would say. I don't know how wild it is. You could tell me how you feel about it, Eric. But my idea here to replace the production of Vladimir Tarasenko would not be Blake Wheeler. It would be Vincent Trocheck. Now, hear me out. I think that Trocheck could move over to right wing, and you could elevate Filipino from the third line to the second line center spot. Heedle looks like he's primed for a breakout. He looks ready to go. And I think that if you move him up into that top six ice time, that gives him the opportunity to go for that breakout year. And I do think that Trocheck is too valuable to stash down on the third line, considering how good of a player he is. He's good on both ends of the ice. And also, he's on the fattest contract known to man. Like a 7-year deal is just ridiculous. He's here for the long haul. Nobody's going to trade for him. Like whether the Rangers want him or not, they're stuck with Trocheck, and I don't consider it stuck because he is a damn good player. But I think that you could get really creative here and have a second line that features left winger Artemi Panarin, center Filipino, right wing Vincent Trocheck. Now I know that's an idea that I've bounced off you before, Eric, but tying it into losing Vladimir Tarasenko here and kind of the regression of this newly signed player in Blake Wheeler, I think it makes a lot of sense. But I'd like to hear if you have any pros, any cons to that second line, and really just your overall thoughts on getting creative here and moving up Heedle and moving Trocheck to the right wing.
Yeah, I mean, there are pros and cons to that. You kind of went over most of the pros where it's just like Heedle's ready to break out. Best way to make that fully happen is giving him top 6 minutes. But then again, you can't do that without sending a guy who can put up 60 plus points and Vincent Trocheck down on the third line. There's precedent for it. Trocheck has experience on the wing playing with Panarin. It just sounds like a superstar line that, honestly could be the first line for the Rangers and would make their top six one of the best in the league once again. Then just like you think past like the surface level of it and like the repercussions that it would then have on the bottom six, where it's just like third line center, you would probably have to have either Goudreau or Nick Bonino playing third line center there, which I don't really know if either of them at this point in their careers deserve third line ice time. And then you have like a whole question on who's going to be in the fourth line. And then it just creates like a whole domino effect of just like you move one player and you kind of just got to start shifting everything and moving all these different like chess pieces to make it all work. So it's like, yes, I think that second line would be incredible and it would definitely help a lot. But then everything else would kind of just like crumble beneath it. So I don't know if I would do it.
No, I think that's a good point. It does create that domino effect that you just mentioned. I mean, you can overload that top six, but then your bottom six is going to be hurt by that. And I think that's a fair point to make, Eric, when you think about, we've talked a lot about depth for the Rangers. Depth is really important. It might be smart to hold one of those really talented players down there on the third line just to increase the production of the bottom six and make sure that it isn't just a bunch of farmers down there, essentially. So, hey, and another pro to that as well, having Heedle on the third line. Lafrenière seems likely to remain on the third line with him. So you've got mostly a kid line forming there, Capo Caco inevitably moving into the top six. But those two down on the third line together, keeping that chemistry. We know that they play well together. They've been the spark plug for the team for the last couple of seasons. So there is a pretty big point to make there as well. But let's talk about one other way that the Rangers could use a kid to reproduce Vladimir Tarasenko's production, right? And that would be Alexis Lafrenière moving over to right wing and moving into the top six. Now, that's another one that we've talked about a little bit. Again, Alexis Lafrenière not technically on the Rangers right now, restricted free agent, so they have the rights to sign him, but they haven't come to terms on a deal just yet. Sure, he could be traded. He's confident that he won't be traded, as Eric pointed out in an article that he recently wrote. Check that out on EmpireSportsMedia.com. But Alexis Lafrenière potentially moving into the top six, taking that right wing spot. Eric, what are your thoughts on the prospects of that happening?
I don't really know. Lafrenière is like he plays left wing. Obviously, if you were moving to the top six, you would have to transition over to the right side, just because Kreider and Panarin, they're not going to be playing bottom 6 minutes. With, like, not only just because skill, just the money we're paying them. Like Panarin, if you're making 10 million a year, you're playing on first or second lines. But like I don't know, I've like we haven't really seen Lafreniere play over on the right side. I don't know how easy of a transition it would be. I also don't really know if he like deserves it, and which like it sounds kind of contradictory to a lot of things that we say, where it's like he's not really going to break out unless he gets those top 6 minutes. But at the same time, I'm like kind of scared to give him those top 6 minutes because I feel like he might just hold them down a little bit. But I don't know. That might just be me a little nervous. I think at least to like at some point in the season, give him like a little bit of time up there just to see what he can do. Um, but I don't know. It's like I'm at the point where it's just like Lafreniere. It's just kind of like giving me a headache.
Yeah, that's valid. I mean, he gave me a headache midway through the last regular season. I floated out the idea of maybe trading him, and then everybody in the comments section decided that they hated me for the next month. But now we're at the point where the Rangers have actually been mulling that decision. So, ha! I'm smarter than all of you. I'm just kidding. But Eric, let's talk about the point production total. You know, how to replace or how to just essentially reproduce what Tarasenko was putting out on the ice. And I know that there's two players in particular that you think need to step up in a larger role in order to do that. And that would be Chris Kreider and that would be Capo Caco. Now, if these guys are able to elevate their point total, it can really make up the difference here from what we're losing in Vladimir Tarasenko. But with those two players, Eric, you know, you're identifying those two guys as the big players that need to step up in order to replace Tarasenko. How can they do that? What do they need to do in order to replace that production, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm calling those two out is just because like everyone else is pretty consistent in what they can do. It's like Artemi Panarin, he's going to score 80 to 90 points a season, if not 100, if he really plays well. Zibanejad, he's going to always put up 40 goals. Like we know what they can do, and they do it on a consistent level. A guy like Chris Kreider, he's the type of guy who 2 seasons ago scores 52 goals and just like explodes, scoring like almost like every game. And then this season, he just has 36. You know, he's like extremely inconsistent throughout his entire career. If you just look at his goal totals, it just goes up and down for like the last 10 years. He needs to score. Vladimir Tarasenko, the best part of his game is just the fact that he knows how to score. You know, he's not one of those players who has like an all around different like strengths and weaknesses to his game. It's just that he just goes out there and he scores goals. So we need Kreider to do that. You know, we don't have a pure goal scorer like that in Tarasenko anymore. Chris Kreider needs to become that guy once again. Capo Caco is the type of kid where it's like he's shown flashes of breakout. Last season he had 40 points. That was almost like double his last career high. He's ready to just like hit the ice and just get going. Like he's going straight up the entire way. And he's going to be getting top 6 minutes. We cannot let that go to waste. You know, like I said, Lafreniere, I'm a little scared to put him in the top six because I don't really know what he's going to do. I'm fully confident in Kako. He's going to get up there on the first line, play with Kreider, play with Zibanejad, and he needs to produce points.
Yeah, and what I will say though about Chris Kreider, the thing that kind of worries me a little bit here, he did take a little bit of a step backwards last year. You know, he regressed if you look at the season prior, dominant player, but this past season, not as much. Can he return to form here? And what happens if he doesn't return to form? What if he takes another step backwards and regresses even further? Then I think we finish this upcoming season with some massive question marks regarding Chris Kreider and his future with the team. So it's very important for him. It's kind of a put up or shut up year. I think there's a lot of pressure riding on the back of Chris Kreider right now, especially considering some of these stars that the Rangers lost this offseason. He really does need to step up, and he does need to start playing some better hockey and really prove that he can be the guy to carry this team to victories. But if he can't, then we're going to have some question marks in next offseason when we do this whole shebang all over again right here on Fireside Rangers. But of course, we're going to be talking about everything regarding the Rangers. We're going to be talking about 3 breakout candidates for the upcoming season soon on the channel. We're going to be talking about what the Rangers ultimately should do with Alexis Lafrenière, all types of different topics that Eric keeps cooking up because he truly is the Iron Chef of Rangers hockey. So we're going to talk about all that stuff. So make sure that if you did enjoy this episode, you leave a like, you ring the bell, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And you comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. And go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Rangers. But without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers.